Yo, 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 what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another audit. So, before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking. All right. So shouts out to everybody that comes into the room. Shouts out to the people watching on YouTube. Shouts out to the people watching on Facebook and Twitch. If you guys want to watch on YouTube, it's very easy. All you got to do is come to YouTube, type in Auditing Africa in the search engine, and you will be led to the channel. All right. Or you can go to any Blacklight Revelations channel and hit the Auditing Africa channel in the channel section. All right. So we got some people in the building early. Shouts out to the people that's up in here early. We got Carla Lockhart in the building. We got my man Al McCowan in the building. And we got Volvo to Love in the building. Good to see you guys as always. All right. So it's been a while since we did an Auditing Africa. If I'm not mistaken, the last Auditing Africa that we did was about a airline in the UK that is actually discriminating against people from South Africa as well as Uganda, if I'm not mistaken. We got Katsy in the building. What up with it, Katsy? Good to see you. So many times we hear about the quote black and brown coalition, but when we hear about this black and brown coalition, in most cases, most people automatically default to Latinos. We never think about the other brown, and the other brown is Arabs. In many cases, most of those people are Muslim, but we know that Islam, aka Muslim, is not a race. It's a religion. It's a Abrahamic religion that teaches submission and worship of Allah and encourages its practitioners to rule over their territories with Sharia law. All right. So I'm not sure if anybody is aware of this, but the number 2 religion in Africa is Islam. If you guys were aware of that, give me a thumbs up. If you were not aware of that, give me a thumbs down. Now, it sounds good, right? If you have a problem, just get on your knees, turn to the east, say assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam, amdu Allah, right? Make it easy and your wish should come true. You know what I'm saying? Not quite. The reason why I say that is because there is an issue on the continent. And the issue on the continent is that Al Qaeda and the Islamic State are on the rise. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to today. I'm going to try it. But I also have a channel that's called International Legion Newscast. If you're not subscribed to International Legion Newscast, it's very easy. You guys know what to do. Just go to the channel section and hit that International Legion Newscast button. All right. I want to talk about After America in Afghanistan. And the reason why I want to talk about After America in Afghanistan is because it's going to bring some context to this. Because this is currently in Africa now, but we're dealing with an organization, multiple organizations that are very similar. Now, if you've been subscribed to the Auditing Africa channel for some time, you'll remember the videos that we did on Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is an organization that's an Islamic organization that's been terrorizing Kenya for a long time. Al-Shabaab is one of the reasons why the United States justified an airstrike where they repeatedly bombed Kenya for a long time just this year. If anybody was unaware that happened, okay? So let's take a look here and see exactly what's going on. We got an article right here from the Washington Post, and what it's talking about is Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are on the rise in Africa. Now, when it says they're on the rise in Africa, we have to remember that the Western media talks about Africa as if it's a country. Wishful thinking, right? For Africa to unify and become this great, strong country. That's asking too much. Africa's about 50, more or less, smaller countries that have been splintered by Western imperialism. Okay. What's important here is the content of this article as well as the comments that people make afterward, because it's important to see how people are talking about you. Because in most cases, especially with situations and topics like this, you have a bunch of ignorant people making ignorant comments. And what's dangerous about those ignorant people and their ignorant comments is that because of their position in the world, they can simply just repeat it and make it true. Something I like to call let there be lightism, because nobody said let there be light and it happened. Okay. So now here it says, as the world remembered the chaos and tragedy surrounded the U.S. and allied withdrawal from Afghanistan a year ago, a quieter exit took place on Monday. All right. And just as you guys understand the context of what, quote, Monday this is an article that came out August 16th. All right. So we're not talking about something that went on during the Reagan administration. We're not talking about something that went on during the Clinton administration. We're talking about something that's going on right now. Okay. This is current day news. All right. The last French troops left Mali for neighboring Niger following or drawing to a formal close in a near decade-long mission in the sprawling West African nation of 21 million people. Now, you might ask your question, what were the French doing there? And why were they there? Why are all these Europeans and Asians in Africa? There's not very many Africans in Europe and in Asia, and the ones that are there are getting persecuted, thrown off of trains in Ukraine, locked up and arrested in the UK. But that's not what's going on here. We have Europeans and Asians in Africa policing Africa. Why is that happening? That's my question. The people in the comment section at the end of this article have a very delusional and ahistoric response. Their presence in Mali had began in 2013 as a part of an ambitious Paris-led effort to, quote, fight back an Islamist militant threat that was spreading across the vast region between desert and savanna known as the Sahel. Now, here's my question. What was the threat? One thing that you have to understand about the mainstream media is when the mainstream media talks about anything that opposes anything white, it's always a threat. But they never say exactly what the threat is. Well, what is the threat? Well, the threat is that they're opposing the French military. That's the threat. Last time I checked, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, any white people in Africa, historically, ever since Europe made contact with Africa, have been a threat. If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. So now here it says, but the mission ended incomplete, despite billions of euros spent and thousands of Malayan lives lost, as well as, you can count these lives, 59 French soldiers. So they lost too many Malayan people to count. 59 white Chads passed away, leaving in its wake no shortage of geopolitical rancor and a worryingly deteriorating security station. Militants from factions linked to both Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State have entrenched themselves on a widening battlefield across the African continent. So what do you guys think about that? It's called Newscast. If there's anybody in here that's a moderator that can drop the link for Newscast, make sure you guys do that for me real quick. That would be great. Shout out to my man Honda 666. What up with it, bro? So now here it says the French departure from Mali had been telegraphed months in advance amid a rupture in relations between the French government, the French President Emmanuel Macron, and a Malayan junta that seized power in August of 2020 and carried out a coup within a coup, as Macron put it against civilian officials 9 months later. All right, and so remember, this is information that we're getting from the Washington Post. Because Blacklight Revelations is a small media organization, not yet at the size where I have a helicopter where I can go and personally interview these people myself, we have to take this based on what they say with a little skepticism. Yeah, that's what the channel's called, but the screen name for it is just newscast. You know what I'm saying? Those overthrows were part of what UN Security General Antonio Gutierrez lamented was an epic de coup d'état in the region, including neighboring Burkina Faso and Guinea. I think that is Guinea. In Mali, not unlike what happened once the United States announced its downdrawn in Afghanistan, which this downdrawn in Afghanistan, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about that after we talk about this. This is specific to Africa, which is why we're talking about it on the Auditing Africa channel. Because remember, the purpose of this Auditing Africa channel is to audit Africa, audit the resources, audit the terrorism, audit the crime, audit the government corruption, audit everything. Because there's no reason why Africa should not be the most powerful continent with the most powerful countries on the planet, in my opinion. The entire world needs Africa. Africa doesn't need the entire world. And when Africa wakes up and realizes that, hopefully things will change for people globally who either have African ancestry or people who have left Africa and become part of the global diaspora. So now here it says the situation is worse than in 2013, said Alpha Al-Hadi Kiona, a Bamako-based geopolitical analyst, to the New York Times. The cancer has spread through Mali. All right, so now this is a bunch of stuff in French that I have no idea what it says. So now here it says the scale of the carnage shows how the central zone of Islamic-related violence has shifted away from the Middle East and Southeast Asia. In Mali, nearly 2,700 people were killed in conflict in the first 6 months of this year, almost 40% more than all of 2021, The Economist detailed last week. And shout out to all of my Patreon subscribers. Shout out to all of the members on my other channels. Because of you guys, I'm able to get a subscription to The Economist, and we'll be checking out that article soon. All right. Literally soon, like when I get done with this one. So, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have not smashed that like button, please make sure that you take a moment and smash that like button. Also, if you haven't shared the video out to your other social media, please take a moment and make sure that you do that as well, because that definitely helps. Right now, we got 6 people watching. Shout out and thank you to all 6 people who are watching. And we got 4 likes. If everybody can take a moment and smash that like button, we will be at 10. Remember, guys, we got that goal of 100 per stream. All right. Last month, jihadists attacked a military checkpoint 60 kilometers from Bamako, the capital. A week later, they hit the country's main military camp on its doorstep. In Niger, deaths in conflict have fallen slightly, but will probably exceed 1,000 in 2022. In Burkina Faso, in the first half of the year, about 2,100 people have been killed. An Islamic State shoot-off has supplanted fundamentalist Islamic group Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. So we're talking about Nigeria. Nigeria is a place that we frequently talk about. There's a lot of Nigerian people who come to the United States. One reason why many of those people may come to the United States might be because of this fundamentalist Islamic group, Boko Haram, terrorizing people in northern Nigeria. Further afield, Islamic State affiliated militants are waging attacks across a swath of Central and East Africa, from northern Mozambique to Uganda to the Democratic Republic of Congo. In Somalia, see, this is what we talked about, Al-Shabaab, an insurgent fraction originally linked to Al-Qaeda that is arguably more capable and much than its much diminished parent organization, remains a powerful force and a threat, with such a menace that it prompted President Biden to deploy the U.S. forces to the country earlier this year. Now, think about that. I mean, was Al-Shabaab threatening the United States? If Al-Shabaab was threatening the United States, give me a thumbs up. If they weren't, give me a thumbs down. What would prompt Joe Biden to dispatch U.S. military resources to Somalia to deal with Al-Shabaab? Think about that. Think about that. So now here it says last week, Martin Iwi, a South Africa-based analyst, briefed the UN Security Council on the scale of the threat, pointing to how the Islamic State was active in more than 20 African countries already, and warned that the continent might represent the future of the caliphate. Now, here's my question. Have you all ever heard any media that discusses the Asian interaction with these Islamic groups in Africa? Because I'd actually be interested to see how that works. I'd actually be interested to see what that looks like. But I've never seen any articles or anything really go over that. So if you guys see any of those, try to get them to me. Tag me in them on Twitter, tag me in them on Facebook, shoot them to one of my inboxes. If you're on Patreon, send me a direct message. That's the best way to get in touch with me, through Patreon. Just shoot me a message, because I check Patreon every day, because I post all the videos that I do on Patreon, so they're automatically there for when I hide them. But I don't check everything else every day. So the Islamic State first supposed caliphate took root in Iraq and Syria amid the chaos of the latter civil war. But a coalition of Western and local forces eventually smashed its forces, recaptured the cities it once controlled, and forced its surviving fighters into captivity or hiding. Iwi told the assembled UN dignitaries that no similar coalition mounted to defeat the Islamic State in Africa, meaning that the continent was left to bear the consequences of those who are fleeing Syria and finding safe havens on the continent. So there you go. They're coming to Africa, and there's no borders or no forces in Africa stopping these people from coming over there. They get there, and then they have a strong influence and take over. I guess history repeats itself a lot. So now here it says France's exit from Mali, though, underscores both how fraught the prevailing security situation is and how difficult it may be to address. After being initially welcomed when huge stretches of Mali were under Islamist militant control, France's presence turned unpopular over time, with incidents like a French airstrike last year in central Mali that killed 9 civilians, souring the attitudes against the old colonial ruler. The attitude should have been soured anyway when they decided to come back over there. They shouldn't have let them back over there. They should have kicked them out. Now, pay very close attention to that, right? Because what you're going to want to look at is the white people here in the United States that are reading this, that are looking at this, that are observing this. They don't care one bit about the way those people should feel because the French killed a civilian. They don't care. Pay very close attention. These are your neighbors. French forces eliminated a significant number of jihadist fighters, and let's not forget, French forces eliminated a significant number of innocent civilians as well, and leaders operating under incredibly difficult circumstances and at high risk. Andrew Leibovich, a policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, which we all know what Europeans' foreign relations look like, basically come in and try to take over. An expert on the Sahel told me. At the same time, the French were ultimately not able to manage tensions with successive Malayan governments. And the reason why is because the French were there extorting, and the Malayan governments wanted to national socialize their resources, as they should. The current junta in Mali appears to be seeking to replace the French's help by enlisting mercenaries from notorious Russian firm Wagner Group, charges Mali's government denies. Forces linked to that organization, along with Malayan troops, are believed to have carried out mass extrajudicial executions in a central Malayan town in March. The political environment in Mali with the junta is so troubling that it compelled Germany to suspend its comparatively smaller role in supporting a UN mission in the country. The disruption, we'll see, and what it is I don't know if this is true or not, but this is just my perception. The Malayans want the Western Europeans out of there because it's not a race thing, clearly, because they enlisted the help of Russians. They want those people who were involved in destroying Africa out of there, which I don't blame them. The disruption of much of the security cooperation with the French and the partner forces has almost certainly contributed to the deterioration of the security situation, while the arrival of Wagner forces has contributed to a number of significant human rights abuses, while doing little to visibly improve the security in the areas in which they most frequently operate, Leibovich said. Which, again, this is Western media, so they're never going to really do or say anything to make anything that Russians do look like they're doing it at the level that they're doing it at. They always are going to try to make it seem like they're not doing as good of a job as what countries in the West were doing. So again, we have to take this stuff with a grain of salt. I don't know. It would be nice if we were able to interview some people from that area. You know what I'm saying? In recent years, he added, the most active components of both Al Qaeda and the Islamic State have been in Africa, particularly in the Sahel and Lake Chad basin, and remain deeply difficult to dislodge. So now it looks like not only is Africa becoming the new China, it looks like Africa may be becoming the new Middle East as well. So my question for everybody that's watching this right now is, how many people were aware of that? If you were aware of this, give me a thumbs up. If you weren't, or if you're not aware of it, give me a thumbs down. Now, you don't really hear them talk about this very much on the mainstream media. And you got to ask yourself the question, why? Why would the mainstream media not talk about this? Here's a better question. Why doesn't all media talk about this? Food for thought. So now here it says, even where some regional interventions have been moderately more successful, these groups continue to operate and not only retain a strong presence, but in some cases expand their operations across quite vast spaces, Leibovich said. So that's the end of that article. All right. Which I find it fascinating. This article was a bunch of words that really didn't say much. I don't know if you've watched my video about Al-Shabaab, Katsy, but it's actually on this channel. You should check out that video on Al-Shabaab because they're just as bad. So now here's the article from The Economist. And this is an article that's supposed to explain how Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are digging into Africa. So now my thing is that if you understand how they're digging in, that should help you be able to figure out a strategy on how to get them out. Because in my opinion, I don't know, which is one of the reasons why I would like to actually interview or talk to somebody from that area. I don't know if the state of Africa is better or worse with these Islamic groups there. We only have the perspective of the Western media. However, as you guys will see, when we talk about the American withdrawal in Afghanistan, according to the people that they had in interviews in those articles, it's become noticeably worse, and especially noticeably worse for women. So that's not a good thing. And that's something that you would think, you would assume that more women would talk about. You would assume that more women would be interested in liberating women who are actually oppressed. Because when you look at the situation in this country, when you look at the situation in this region of the world, these are women who are actually oppressed by an anarchic, abusive, pseudo-religious, pseudo-science-based regime that has integrated their nonsensical laws and morals and ethics system into the way that they govern the country, which in my opinion is absolutely toxic. Shout out to Val Williams. What up with it, Val? Good to see you. So now here it says Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, how they're digging into Africa. The terrorist group's African franchises are now punchier than those in the Middle East. So what we have here is a situation where Africa is infested with Muslim extremists to the point that they're now more dangerous than the original ones in the Middle East. But if you listen to most content on YouTube, even international news, this isn't an attack on individual content creators. I understand that individual content creators may have what you do outside of YouTube, and you know what I'm saying, people have limited time. There's a lot of content that I wish I could cover that I just never get to. You guys should see. I I never get to I hardly ever get to the stuff that people send me because I have so much stuff of my own that I want to show you guys. And I don't have a production team. It's all me. That's one of the reasons why I haven't been able to produce any videos for you guys lately, because it's so much information. The quickest way for me to get it out is to stream it. But these companies, ABC, NBC, places that have massive amounts of resources available to them, they're not even doing the groundwork. They're not doing the legwork. They're not covering any of this stuff. My question to you guys is, why not? That's the question. So now here it says 13 years have passed since Al-Qaeda's last big plot against America in a botched effort to blow up the New York subway in 2009. The war in Afghanistan is over. Americans and Europeans are preoccupied with other crises, from Ukraine to Taiwan. But the two Hellfire missiles that killed Ayman al-Zawahiri, Al-Qaeda's leader and Osama bin Laden's successor, on a balcony in Kabul on July 31st were a remainder of his group's staying power. Mr. Zawahiri would not have dreamed of watching the sunrise from the luxury of Kabul's diplomatic enclave had the Taliban not conquered Afghanistan last summer. His safe house was owned by the Haqqani Network, a group with ties to Pakistani intelligence. Sarah Haqqani, its leader, is both deputy head of the Taliban and interior minister of Afghanistan. No wonder that Zawahiri, whose communications were once so patchy that many thought him dead, felt secure enough there to release a stream of videos on topics from Syria's civil war to pro-hijab protests in India. In one sense, Mr. Zawahiri's tenure from 2011 to 2022 was a failure. His group mounted few big attacks in America or Europe for a decade, nor did it topple any supposedly apostate Arab regimes like Saudi Arabia or Egypt. The rise of Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, which had split from Al-Qaeda and in 2014 set up a media-savvy caliphate that held territory for several years, made Mr. Zawahiri's outfit look like an also-ran. It's not. The Al-Qaeda terrorist infrastructure we faced in 2001 is long since gone, said Ken McCollum, head of M15, which is Britain's security service, last year, shortly before Kabul fell. But that infrastructure shows signs of revival, according to a UN monitoring team. Al-Qaeda has an advisory role with the Taliban. It notes Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent has 180 to 400 members, many of whom recently fought alongside the Taliban. All right. So now here's my question. Do you guys see how this network is expanding outward? If you guys see that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't see that, give me a thumbs down. We don't have evidence that there is any nascent international attack capability that is starting to blossom in Afghanistan, says Edmund Fitton Brown, the U.S. team's coordinator. But he notes that Mr. Haqqani, as interior minister, oversees citizenship, passports, and travel. This could be a longer game plan that could lead to fresh acts of terrorism by the likes of Al Qaeda anywhere planned in Afghanistan. So now, what I want you guys to pay close attention to is this map right here. And if you guys pay close attention to this map, the legend shows that the countries that are the most orange in appearance have a large declared presence of Al Qaeda and Islamic State. The countries that are lighter orange have Islamic State, and the countries that are orangish yellow have Al Qaeda. So, I mean, look at North Africa. Now, here's my question. We hear a lot about the Asian infiltration into Africa. We hear about that all the time. Two things that we don't hear about very often is we don't hear about the Russian involvement in Africa, and we don't hear about the Islamic involvement in Africa. And again, my question for you guys is, why don't we hear very much of that? And another question for you guys is, would you guys be interested in more? And well, China is probably playing with their numbers. And the reason why China's probably playing with their numbers is to downplay the human rights abuses that they're doing to their Muslim population over there. There's a group of Chinese indigenous people that's being persecuted by the Chinese government that the United States acts like they don't know anything about, so they don't help those people. Also, the Communist Party in China, in cahoots with the United States, systematically, ethnically genociding those people. Yeah, the Uyghurs. You don't hear very much about that. Now, if the United States actually had a media propaganda war and agenda against China, they'd definitely be exploiting the human rights abuses over there to the Uyghurs. Also, you would assume that most Asian immigrants to the United States, because of persecution, would be Uyghurs. For whatever reason, it's not the case. That's a question that people should ask. So now here it says that will depend on whether the Taliban reign in fearful of the consequences of another attack mounted from Afghanistan soil. But what already distinguishes Al Qaeda's position today compared with 2001 is the breadth of its activity. In recent years, the movement has become remarkably decentralized. The Sahel, a vast, poorly governed stretch to the south of the Sahara Desert, is now the world's terrorism hotspot. The Sahel is in Africa. Did anybody know that Africa was the hotbed of the world's Islamic terrorism? You don't hear that too often. Why don't you hear stories about that? There's a lot of YouTube content creators that do a lot of talking and a lot of coverage about Africa, but they don't talk about that. In my opinion, that is something that people need to talk about. That is something that people need to be made aware of. It seems like for whatever reason, the only thing that people concentrate on is what's going on with the Chinese and with Africa. Now, here's my thing, right? The Chinese are terrorizing Africa, but just in a different way. They're terrorizing Africa through economic terrorism, through economic bullying. But this is physical terrorism. And that's not to say that the Chinese don't physically terrorize Africans, because the Chinese are anti-black racists for the most part. You can see how the Chinese treat black people in China. They decide to rip Nigerian college students out of their dorm rooms, not even test them for C-19 and throw them into camps So much so that the WHO has to tell them to stop. Because again, most of these people just don't have sense enough to treat black people like human beings. Doesn't matter if they're Asian, doesn't matter if they're Muslim, doesn't matter if they're white. If you're dealing with people who aren't black, you need to be on alert because the world history is that none of those people have any sense. Look at the treatment. Look at the historic legacy of treatment. Now, I wouldn't say something like that if there wasn't a Bible-sized book of evidence to back that up. I mean, look what the French did just in that last article that we talked about. Oh, we just start dropping bombs everywhere, and if we kill some civilians, hell, we just kill them. They're black. When it comes to the earth, black people are like grass. It's expendable. When it gets too much, you just cut it down. European and Asian culture, European and Asian thought process. So now here it says accounting for more than a third of all terrorism deaths in 2021. It is home to Jamaat Nazir Islam wal Muslimin, a support group for Islam and Muslims, or JNIM, a coalition affiliated to Al Qaeda. Last year, it was the world's fastest growing jihadist organization, measured by the increase in the tally of attacks and deaths. So now what I find fascinating is Ilian Omar is Somalian and she's Muslim. And I'm just curious as to, quote, how Muslim, if you know what I mean, if that makes any sense. Because if you go back up and you look at this map, some of these areas, just because it says Islamic State and Al Qaeda, they don't talk about like Ethiopia and Somalia that have a huge concentration of Al Shabaab. There's a lot of Al Shabaab members in those countries. And Al Shabaab is just as extremist and they're just as dangerous. So people should really be mindful of that. And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys haven't smashed that like button, please make sure you guys take a moment and make sure that you hit that like button. In Mali, nearly 2,000 people were killed in conflict in the first 6 months of this year. Almost 40% more. Oh, you know what? Did we already read that? Let me see. Hold on real quick. I think we got skipped a little bit. No, we didn't already read that. Okay. In Mali, nearly 2,700 people were killed in conflict in the first 6 months of this year, almost 40% more than in all of 2021. Last month, jihadists attacked a military checkpoint 60 kilometers from Bamako. Yeah, we read that. Let's skip down here. Crossing the continent. Al Qaeda is finding, look at this. Al Qaeda is finding fertile ground in East Africa. Al Shabaab, its affiliate, controls large rural parts of Somalia. Now, check this out. How many of you guys are aware of the issue that the Russia-Ukraine conflict has on East Africa? How many of you guys are aware of the effect? Ukraine and Russia both are some of the largest wheat producers in the world. And a lot of that wheat gets sold to the UN and the World Health Organization to supply food banks. A lot of that wheat goes to Kenya. So not only do you have this going on, not only do you have 40-year high inflation going on, but you also have a wheat shortage, which supplies a lot of these poor people in these countries, which is bad. And yeah, that's a fact, Katsy. The Ukrainians, when the African students were there, at medical school. They wouldn't let them get on the trains, and they were, just Azov battalion behaviors started coming out. So now here it says General Stephen Townsend, America's commander for Africa until August 9th, told the Senate in March that Al Shabaab is the largest, wealthiest, most lethal Al Qaeda affiliate in the world today. It has grown stronger and bolder over the past year. In May, it overran an African Union base, killing more than 50 people and stealing weapons. In July, a force of 500 to 800 Al Shabaab fighters penetrated a security zone maintained by Ethiopia, then crossed 150 kilometers into that country with the aim of setting up base in the Bale Mountains. Now, my question for you guys is, as usual, what do you think about this? Al Shabaab. If you guys haven't seen my video on Al Shabaab, I do believe that it is on this channel. You guys should check it out. You know what I'm saying? Watch it all the way through to the end. Yeah. It's called the video the video is called Al Shababble. You guys know I like coming up with funny and creative titles. You know what I'm saying? But it's a good video. Shout out to my man Law. What up with it, bro? So now here it says it's also spread from its core territory in Iran and Syria to an array of local conflicts. Now here's my thing, right? All right. So here in the United States, we talk about the black and brown non-existent coalition. There's a security flaw in Apple electronic products, probably by some part that's put in manufactured by China. There's probably some, how do you say that? Huihi or whatever, 5G receptor or something like that put in by China that's feeding all of our American information to the Chinese Communist Party. You know what I'm saying? I'm not surprised. I don't expect any information to be private anymore. That's one of the reasons why, you know, I have a girlfriend now, but when I was single and in the flirting stage, you can send me as many pictures as you want to, but I'm not sending you nothing because I'm not the only person looking at that stuff. You know what's crazy is one time I had to call Apple for some customer support, and what was crazy was when they were able to go inside of my phone while I was there on the phone with them and go into the settings and fix it themselves. What else can y'all do from a remote location? I'm good. I'm good. You know what I mean? Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, we got 9 people watching. Shout out and thank you for all 9 people who are watching. If everybody takes a moment and smashes that like button, we will be at 16 likes, which will be awesome. So please make sure you guys smash that like button. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that bell icon twice. All right. Its rivalry with Al Qaeda in Syria has abated. Both groups struggle to strive there, though thousands of its sympathizers still lurk among Sunnis aggrieved by the Shias' new dominance in Iraq. Now, the Black Brown Coalition, that's where I was going. The Black Brown Coalition here in the United States usually is referred to as Black and Hispanic, Black and Latino, right? Now, here's my question for everybody in the comment section. What have Black people gotten out of that alliance? Has there been any positive, tangible products, empowerment, anything? What can we say that we've gotten out of it? Now, they've gotten a lot out of it. We can list all of the things that they got, but what have we gotten? That's my question. Katsy says nothing. If you guys agree with Katsy, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. Now, here's a question for you. If you look at the Arabic countries, most of them have autonomy. Most of them are pretty well off as far as financially. Countries like Iran are trying to get their own nuclear missiles. My question is, the escapees from those countries, the Muslim extremists, are the ones who are coming in and influencing Africa. Africa's still losing money on its exports. The only significant infrastructure projects are the infrastructure projects that are going on with Russians and Chinese. So when it comes to the quote other black and brown coalition, the Muslim and African coalition, is there anything visible other than death and bombs that has been obtained? Has there been any significant improvement in quality of life with a black and brown coalition in Africa with Africans and Muslim refugees, Muslim fugitives from the quote unquote Arabic Peninsula? Those people have come over, developed coalitions, improved their numbers, got significant support staff, and have a lot of Africans doing the legwork for them, to the point now where Africa is the hotbed of terrorism, spreading nonsense from the Middle East to the continent. So my question is, why did they accept that? And do they have an expected payoff? What is the expected payoff? And again, my question is, how is this working out with the Chinese over there? How is this working out with the Russians over there? So now here it says its rivalry with Al Qaeda in Syria has abated. Both groups struggle to survive there, though thousands of its sympathizers still lurk among the Sunnis, aggrieved by the Shias' new dominance in Iran and Iraq, and it keenly recruits, funds, and influences jihadists in Africa and in Afghanistan. So now we're talking about funding jihadists in a continent, Africa, and in a country, Afghanistan. In Nigeria, for instance, Islamic State West Africa province has replaced Boko Haram as the main jihadist group. One of its offshoots, Islamic State, is in the Greater Sahara, has mounted indiscriminate attacks in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. An Islamic State linked group has wrought havoc in northern Mozambique. Back in Afghanistan, most of the 700 people killed since America left a year ago have died at the hands of its local branch, Islamic State Khorasan. Okay. This alphabet soup of local groups can be confusing. The links to their parent organizations are often fuzzy. ISGS, for example, is really a form of major gang criminality, argues General Mark Conrad, who led the French forces in Sale a year ago. It wraps itself in a jihadist flag, but does not have a clear political project. Most of the groups that make up JNIM are run by Malayans with a local agenda in mind. Among the coalition of groups in JNIM, the one perhaps most closely tied to core Al Qaeda as the leadership is known as Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. Yet, even it largely ignored Mr. Zawahiri's entreaties to attack Americans rather than local security forces. The disconnect between jihadist core and periphery periphery may be partly due to counterterrorism successes. Al Qaeda's affiliate in Syria, then known as Jabhat al Nusra, was unable to communicate with Mr. Zawahiri for 3 years between 2013 and 2016, says Tori Hamming of the International Center for Study of Radicalization at King's College London. It reached out to other Al Qaeda leaders in Iran, but basically ran its own business. The same time is probably true of some African affiliates. In this case, many affiliates even collect money and send it to the central leadership, not vice versa. So they're getting money in Africa, sending it to Syria, Afghanistan, and other places. That was my man Zip did that. My man Zip did that. So shout out to my man Zip. You know what I'm saying? You like that though, huh? It is a Cleveland hat. It reached out to other Al Qaeda leaders in Iran, but basically ran its own business. The same is probably true of some African affiliates. In the case of IS, many affiliates even collect money and send it to the central leadership, and not vice versa, adds Hamming. This decentralization may help keep Al Qaeda and ISIS, and Islamic State, alive. America has now assassinated both of Al Qaeda's leaders, the first five heads of Islamic State in Afghanistan, and successive leaders in Syria, most recently in February. Yet this relentless decapitation seems to have made little difference. So now they did all of that, and then America withdrew. Think about that, guys. They did all of that. They did all of that, and then America withdrew. Now, here's my question to you guys. What kind of sense does that make? Did that make any sense whatsoever? So, my question for everybody is what is your hypothesis? What is your assumption of why the United States really withdrew from Afghanistan? And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, we got 9 live viewers. Again, shout out and thank you to all 9 live viewers. And we have 9 likes. If everybody can take a moment and smash that like button, that'll get us to 18, which will be awesome. So please make sure you guys smash that like button and help us get to 18. The two organizations look more diffuse, however, and Mr. Zawahiri's successors are unlikely to reverse this trend. Saif al Adel, Al Qaeda's heir apparent, and Abdul Rahman al Maghibiri, man, these names are difficult, is the next most senior figure, and both live in Iran, where they are kept on a tight leash by Iranian intelligence. Their freedom to travel, communicate, and command may be less than Mr. Zairi enjoyed for most of his tenure. Does this centrifugal tendency among jihadists spell more or less of a danger for the West? Some argue that the violence they perpetrate in places like the Sahel and Afghanistan is dreadful for the locals, but a sideshow for the West. These are areas of limited interest to the United States, says Daniel Byman of Georgetown University. Now, pay very close attention. These are areas of limited interest to the United States. Now, here's my question. I thought the United States wanted to bring democracy to the entire world. So, if the United States wanted to bring democracy to the entire world, then it would seem that any area where there's not democracy would be of high interest to the United States. But the United States can arrogantly say those are areas that we're not interested in. There are areas that they're not interested in because probably it's barren desert land and there's no natural resources that the United States can extort for its own purposes. That's the reality. So now here it says the centrally run jihad of the 1990s against the West that culminated in 9/11, in this view, reversed. Al Qaeda has become a local group that doesn't really prioritize external attacks, says Mr. Hamming. Western intelligence agencies are less sanguine. The UN monitoring panel reckons that the jihadists in Santil and elsewhere must be crushed, or more of them will incubate an external operational capability for Al Qaeda or related terrorist group. Complacency would be unwise. All right. So that's what's going on in Africa. We have the Chinese over there in Africa staking their claim. We have Russians in Africa staking their claim. The white supremacist West has already staked its claim in Africa. And now we have Muslim extremists changing the culture and staking its claim. So my question for everybody is, what do you all think about that? And my question is, had you all heard about that before watching this video? Let your boy know in the comment section. Now, I saw an interesting little segment that Jimmy Dore posted, and I'm going to show it to you guys. This is an interaction between an African journalist and the United States press secretary, Joe Biden's press secretary. All right. I want to know what you guys think about this and how you feel about it.
Is very interesting because remember what we covered this. There's an African reporter. So, and Jen Psaki, who was Joe Biden's press secretary, on her last day, he made a big stink. He's an African reporter, and he was making a big stink that you never call on us. Why don't you ever call on people from Africa? And she just ignored him and told him to shut up. Everybody was telling him to shut up, and he wouldn't shut up. So guess what happened? So then not PayPal, but Stripe. It's another payment system. They took his Stripe account away.
Economic sanction. That's the problem with white people controlling the entire financial system. You don't shut up, we'll just take you out of the financial system. It's the weapon that they use all the time. It's what they tried to do to Russia, but Vladimir Putin was ready. He said, y'all gonna learn today. And America's still learning, and so is Europe, with interest rates of, or inflation rates, consumer price index of 10.1% in the UK. Gas prices at 40-year highs here in the United States. But as you can see, right out the same playbook. We don't like what you're saying. You're talking too much. We're going to strangulate you and make sure that you're not able to get paid. If you ask me, slavery can be considered 400 years of economic sanction, 400 years of divestment, boycott, and sanction. If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
This is very interesting because remember what we covered this. There's an African reporter. So, and Jen Psaki, who was Joe Biden's press secretary, on her last day, he made a big stink. He's an African reporter, and he was making a big stink that you never call on us. Why don't you ever call on people from Africa? And she just ignored him and told him to shut up. Everybody was telling him to shut up, and he wouldn't shut up. So guess what happened? So then not PayPal, but Stripe. It's another payment system. They took his Stripe account away. So then he couldn't make money at his newspaper. His newspaper was all run on Stripe. So Stripe, again, all these, if whether it's Patreon, whether it's PayPal, whether it's Stripe, they're all owned by a billionaire somewhere, and they can screw you if you go against the establishment, which is what they did to him. So now it happened again. So a day after the United States announced its new strategy towards sub-Saharan Africa, and with a new commander assuming command of AFRICOM today, African reporters say they have to beg for questions from Biden's press secretary, which is so that's what I said. They didn't fix the problem. They didn't fix the problem of them not calling on reporters from Africa or addressing African concerns. They didn't fix that problem. They put an African American in charge of it. She's not.
Now, here's my question for you guys. Do you guys agree with Jimmy Dore's assessment right there? They put an African American in charge of it. She's not an African American. She's not from Africa. She's a Haitian American. She's not African. Yeah, I get it. Her ancestors and her lineage derives from Africa, but she's not African. She's Haitian. She has a French last name. She's Haitian. She's not an African American. I'm an African American. Does that make any sense? Not I'm an African American, but we're Black Americans, people who come from Africa like this. Like, who would be a good example of an African American? Michael Blackson, he's an African American. So I said that wrong. I apologize. None of us were born and raised in Africa. Is that a bad thing? Am I saying that to hurt anybody's feelings or cause division? No, I'm not. She's Haitian. She's a Haitian American. Pay very close attention how white people will say that all black people are African American. How is she an African American if her family or nobody, her herself didn't immigrate from Africa? Yeah, Obama. Obama's a biracial president with African lineage. Shout out to my man DJ Elmo. But just pay very close attention to how white people do that. They do the same shit with that people of color bullshit. And again, that's no disrespect to Africans. So let's not get that twisted, because there's all these people that have all these extra issues, and I'm not one of those extra issues people. You know what I'm saying? I'm just calling shit how I see it. I'm just coming straight up the middle. Again, that don't make her any more or any less of a person because she's Haitian. I'm simply making that distinction, and I'm making that distinction to show how people like Jimmy Dore look at you. Are you African American? No, she's Haitian American. We don't all come from Africa, white people. Just like you all don't come from UK. What if I said every white person was British? Oh, white people would be highly offended. That's anti-white. You're being a racist. No. I'm categorizing race and ethnicity the way you all do. Black people are not a genetic trash can. But like Jimmy Dore just clearly demonstrated, that's how they look at us. Biden did not put an African American as his press secretary. Biden put a Haitian American as his press secretary. Would Jimmy Dore look at us funny if we called him a European American? He's not from Europe. His ancestry and his lineage comes from Europe. But he'd look at me like I'm crazy if I said that. So now why is it that everybody else can do that and it's okay, but if we do it, these same people here are sitting there trying to call us racist or say that we're saying some kind of anti-hate crime? How does that work? Do you guys agree with what I'm saying? If you don't agree, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? As long as you just explain to me and let me know why you don't agree, I might actually agree with you if you don't agree. But am I making sense? Like, is that logical? First question to clear the air on this. Do you all agree with Jimmy Dore, that the press secretary is African American? My stance is I disagree. She's a Haitian American. She is not from the continent of Africa. Does that mean that she doesn't have African lineage or African ancestry? No. That means that she's not a citizen of an African nation. She has a citizenship here in the United States, and more than likely she has a citizenship in Haiti, where she immigrated from. So now pay very close attention to how they don't provide any respect or value to anybody else's ethnicity or race other than their own. You have to be very specific. I'm Irish and German. But you all are African American, even though you came from Jamaica. You're African American, even though you were born here in the United States, and one of my ancestors owned a bunch of you on a plantation. Doesn't make any sense. White splaining, Mayo splaining. And in my opinion, it shouldn't be allowed. It doesn't matter how irritated they get. Keep pressing the issue. A bunch of geeks and gamers will make a video. Oh my God, this is woke. It's woke because you're being corrected about being dumb as hell. That's woke. Shout out to my man, Mike Mellis John. Huey. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Would you consider that great replacement theory, replacing Black Americans with non-FBA and calling us all African Americans? No, I wouldn't consider that, Val. I could see why you would say that. I would consider that all Black people are getting replaced, and Black people need to wake up and stop having Twitter space wars with each other and start getting their hands on some military weaponry and going to defend themselves against the people that actually have a war against them. That would be my advice, because if you pay very close attention, Islam is the number 2 religion in Africa. Why? Why is Christianity a huge religion in Africa? Why do we have the last names that we have? Here in the United States, what remnants of any native culture do us as Black people who come from plantations? All elements of our culture are a mix between white supremacy and our own creativity, which means that our culture, we've been completely culturally genocided. And basically what we are is a post-apocalyptic remnant of what there was before. They had breeding farms, like, yeah, I know you guys, when I'm on TD Hip Hop Media, you know what I'm saying? You guys see me. I don't really show my face here. And it's not for any reason. I just don't, because I'm lazy. TD will tell you. That's literally it. You guys see my studio. I got a nice live streaming studio. I just don't show it because I can sit here in chill mode. I could have a chair leaned all the way back, looking like I'm at the dentist's office with the mic in my face and just chilling. You know what I'm saying? Because I like to kick back like that. And that's not gonna look real good on the stream. You know what I'm saying? But if you look at like the older generations back in the day, the older generations of Black people was very, very light skinned. And it was because those were like the first generation of mixed people. And then those people became light skinned people because those mixed people that couldn't pass, they were married to and having relationships with other Black people. Interracial relationships were not allowed at the time. So there wasn't, for the most part, very many voluntary mixed kids or mixed people. Most mixed people were involuntary mixed people, which would translate to those people being those slaves that were like the house slaves. People never understand that when I say voluntary and involuntary mixed people. In my opinion, like most light-skinned people is involuntary mixed people. And that ain't to make, that's not to say anything negative or bad. I mean, I'm an involuntary light-skinned motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? It's because a lot of those light-skinned people are a result of the slave breeding. Like Thomas Jefferson's ancestors, or like Thomas Jefferson's kids. And in my opinion, people need to say that. People need to talk about that. White people will weaponize that shit against you. Don't let you start talking too Black and you really start getting on their nerves. They'll talk about how you light skinned. You're not even really Black. I saw a video, somebody was debating and they brought up Yvette Carnell talking about she's mixed. Now, I don't know about Yvette Carnell if she's mixed or not. She is pretty light skinned, but that don't mean that she's mixed though, because it's a lot of Black people that's not mixed at all, and they just happen to be light skinned. I don't know what her parents look like. You know what I'm saying? But white people will quickly weaponize that. White people was the main ones going around talking about how Kamala Harris ain't black. They was the main ones talking about how Obama got a white mom. They do the same shit with Colin Kaepernick. I mean, how is he so pro-black when he grew up with a white family? What does that got to do with anything? You want to keep it a buck? We all grew up with a white family. It was just an abusive white family. That's what a damn plantation is. And to me, there's nothing wrong with that. If you using that to articulate your talking point, if you're using that to go to information warfare to get what it is that you need to get, there's nothing wrong with citing that. They'll be the first people to tell you to talk about that. White people will be the first people that don't like you, have a political rival or whatever. They'll be the first ones to try to find any involvement with another white person or something like that, and they'll try to bring that up to take away from your legitimacy, which that never takes anything away from somebody's legitimacy to me. Only somebody's individual actions takes away from their legitimacy. Only somebody's individual actions. Look at this picture. In college, he had nothing but white friends. I don't care. Was he burning crosses with him? Was he acting like a coon? I mean, what the fuck? Y'all the motherfuckers complaining about people being anti-white nowadays, and this motherfucker got white friends, but you're trying to convince me these are racist. Like, they still don't ever make sense. Which is why in that last video on C19 channel, I said no argument or no talking point that they ever come with is of sound purpose or of sound mind. It never makes sense. The expectation is if they open their mouths, you be quiet. Just like what Jimmy Dore is showing in this video here. No, I'm not going to be quiet. I had a video where I was talking about Kevin Samuels and Brittany Venti. She's a YouTuber, and she's one of these white supremacist Karen YouTubers that says that she's got a black mom, which yeah, her mom is probably black like Meghan Markle black, if she is even Meghan Markle black. But one of her fanboys was in my comment section like, you're being racist towards Brittany and she's black. First of all, I'm black. I'm not being racist towards Brittany. But let me ask you a question, because I've told people, you know what I'm saying? Like, my mom is mixed. You know what I'm saying? So I got like, I don't know. I don't know what percentage of European in me, but there is some in me. So can I just go around and I'm gonna be white for the day. I'm white. I'm gonna be just like Brittany Venti. How Brittany Venti is this white girl that goes around and says that she's black. I'm gonna be a black dude and go around and say that I'm white. Is that gonna fly? Is that gonna go over? One thing that I find fascinating about coons is coons never talk about how much white they have in them. And they never just I'm just gonna be white. Now, when white people are trolling black people, they got a black grandparent or something like that, or a black half sister or something like that. I mean, I'm black. I'm black. But pay very close attention how the black coons, they know not to step over that line. See? Val can vouch for what I'm saying. That's true. In my genealogy, my mother and sister are light skinned. I'm caramel complexion. I've done the research. We have Scottish ancestors that were also our slave master when I worked for the Department of, is that the Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Human Services? But see, this is all true. And see, the expectation is that they don't expect none of us to notice, and they don't expect none of us to say that as a talking point. I'll say that shit. I don't care. It doesn't bother me one bit because it's my lineage. It's my DNA. It's what's inside of me. And I'm happy that I'm me. And everybody else should be happy that they're them. And nobody should ever let anybody here in the United States or anywhere make them feel that they're less. Yeah. See, the white family service specialist will say that you're interracial. You're not interracial. How are you interracial? You don't live your life as interracial. Like people who have parents who are definitively black and definitively white, they grow up in a different way because they have aspects of whatever black, if their dad is like an actual black person, or if their dad is a coon, or if their mom is a coon, they grow up with that influence as well as the white influence. So it makes someone starkly different with like a little bit different cultural elements than a black person that just happened to be light skinned. People say that shit I have white people say that stupid ass shit to me all the time. You're mixed. You're the only one that called me that. what what makes me mixed? Because you know where I'm about to go when people say that. If a white person call you mixed, you just answered your own question about how did racism affect anybody alive today. You just answered your own question about how racism affected anybody that's alive today. So let's get to talking about them reparations. I mean, just think about it. A lot of us are blood relatives to the people who victimized generations of our ancestors. We're blood relatives to them. Think about that shit. It's like that episode of G.I. Joe when Lady J and Destro found out that they were related. That racist Karen could be your cousin. if you're a black American. That's the difference between if you're a black American versus if you're African. If you're African, that Karen ain't related to you. If you're a black American, it's a possibility that that police officer that's with his boys about to put bullets in you is a fourth, fifth, or sixth cousin. We got involuntary family members. It's just an interesting dynamic. Now, that's part of our culture that's unique. I'm telling you, when it comes to you, when it comes to us, you're automatically gonna win if you're on the right side of history. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. People just need to start waking up and realizing that. Once people start waking up and realizing that, once people start getting their confidence up, literally the world is yours.
African concerns. They didn't fix that problem. They put an African American in charge of it. She's not going to fix it either, but she's there, so you can't wag your finger at them, but we can. So look at all the boxes she checks. She's minority, she's a woman, she's gay, and she's an immigrant.
Where did she immigrant from, Jimmy? Was it an African country? See, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is what I'm saying. Jimmy Dore got over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, though, because a white face is more aesthetically pleasing to people in the United States, as well as the programmed artificial intelligence that recommends content. But he's sitting here saying stuff like this. Now, here's my question to y'all. What do y'all think about that?
So they didn't fix the problem. They didn't fix the problem of them not calling on reporters from Africa or addressing African concerns. They didn't fix that problem. They put an African American in charge of it. She's not going to fix it either, but she's there, so you can't wag your finger at them, but we can. So look at all the boxes she checks. She's minority, she's a woman, she's gay, and she's an immigrant. And it feels so
Haiti.
But pardon me?
From Haiti.
From Haiti.
So now they know that she's from Haiti, but they're still calling her an African American. Jimmy Dore, ladies and gentlemen. White people, ladies and gentlemen. They don't call Ukrainians anything other than Ukrainian Americans. Just pay very close attention to this shit. You know why mongooses can kill king cobras the way they do? Because they watch how they move.
A nation that Biden is treating like a colonial stooge.
That's right. And so, but it makes me feel much better when someone who checks all those boxes lies to us. So, or ignores the concerns of Africans. So let's watch it happen again. Here it is.
About what happened yesterday.
Afterwards, between the Justice Department and President Biden.
One question for Africa, Kareem.
I'm gonna come back, guys.
Thank you. Why do we always have to beg for questions? Africans deserve questions as well, Kareem. Come on.
What is the latest?
And I have a question, Kareem.
So then Biden's press secretary then goes on to let a Karen ask questions. So now this is something that you don't really hear talked about in those Twitter spaces. You never hear about the anti-black sentiment that certain groups of immigrants have for other black immigrants. Now let's get this together for the slow people out here, because there's a lot of slow motherfuckers out here. Nobody said that immigrants are holding black people back. What you just saw was a Haitian immigrant here shun an African journalist. Where did that behavior come from? What part of Haitian culture is that? Is that French part or what? That lady that played Houdini with the handcuffs and the AK-47, she finally made the national news, huh? After a couple days. See, that's why people need to be watching Blacklight Revelations, and y'all need to watch Just Talking with TD and Rob. You get them stories first. And Crimecast, because I did a video on her ass on Crimecast. What makes it worse is that it's two non-FBAs on national TV having trivial dispute over something that could have been resolved in seconds. Yeah, I agree. But in my opinion, I don't blame the African lady. I blame the press secretary, because why didn't she just answer the African lady's question? What made that white woman better that she just skipped over the African lady? You know what I mean? Like, she just skipped over the African lady. Like, this is just what I'm supposed to do. Like, that's wild. After the African lady had just said something, after the Biden administration already has a history of abusive behavior towards African journalists. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, we got 13 live viewers. Shout out and thank you to all 13 live viewers. If everybody can take a moment and smash that like button, we'll be at 23, which would be awesome. So please take a moment. Make sure that you guys smash that like button. Also, if you're not subscribed to the backup channels, make sure you take a moment and hit those backup channels. The press secretary is following orders. I agree with that, Val. If you guys agree with Val, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. And Jimmy is on that all black people look alike BS. Yeah, they all are. Just like how they be on that all black people look alike shit, I be on that all white people are racist until proven otherwise shit. The moment they decide to get off that dumb shit, I'll get off my dumb shit. You're not about to sit up there and act some kind of way and act as if you're not about to get any kind of particular treatment back. That shit's been going on long enough. We all look alike. You're all racist.
Deserve questions as well, Karina. Come on.
What is the latest?
Can I have a question, Karina?
Okay, I'll take a couple more questions. Okay, I'm gonna take, guys. Go ahead. Okay. Give me a second.
We have been asking for
Go ahead.
questions for it
Go ahead.
every time. And even when you give questions to Simon, it's because you force. We don't need to force for question. We also deserve to have a question.
I will
Why
get,
do you
I will
have
get,
something against African
go
reporters?
ahead.
On Afghanistan, Sheikh Salman said.
So now, if Trump's administration treated African reporters like that, it would be a scandal.
No, what's the scandal is that white people act like they're shocked when they see white people. They don't act shocked when they see white people act like that towards black people, but they find it offensive when they see black people act like that towards other black people. And the only reason why they find it offensive is because that right there, Jean-Pierre was exhibiting white privilege. White people don't like to see black people abuse other black people because they feel that it's their God-given right to be able to do it. I'm supposed to be abusing you. You're not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be able to treat a black person like that and then turn around and say that I'm not racist. My man DJ says they know the difference between Black Americans, Haitians, and continental Africans. Dub S just like to play those games when it suits their narrative. And by the way, Yvette Carnell's parents are black. She showed it. Yeah, I thought so. She showed a picture of her parents at their first ADOS conference some years back. Yeah, some years back. Yeah, she looks black. She don't look mixed. And see, that's the shit that be funny about white people. They'll see a black person that's really light skinned. They be like, oh, they're mixed. You can't tell that's not a mixed person. You can look at Yvette Carnell's face and tell that she's black. She's not mixed at all. She just light skinned. she just a red bone. You know what I'm saying?
But do you see how they do the identity politics? So now it's not a scandal because we have a black woman doing that to Africans. And she's doing it. She's
not an American black woman. She's a Haitian woman. She's a black Haitian woman. See, this is that silly shit. White people just talking to other white people. Silly shit. That white gaslighting. White lighting.
fucking ignoring them and she's sick of them. And why don't you shut the fuck up? While
Russia.
And blame Russia.
Yeah.
Hang on, I think there's more to this.
Last year that there was going to be an extensive top to bottom review of the loan, how that went.
Can you start again because someone was yelling over you?
Jake Sullivan said last year.
Could you start again because someone was yelling from Africa?
Some African was trying to talk over you.
Wow.
Blinken said that the United States and Africa.
So see, now what I find fascinating is they're acting like they're outraged by something that they literally all say out on the balcony drinking. Like these people would literally say that frivolously out of their own mouth on the balcony on a Friday night, drinking and smoking. But it's an outrage that she said it. It's wrong either way, but the double standards is just funny as hell to watch. And like white people really think that they be coming with some kind of legitimate shit when they point this shit out. Like, look at this. Look at this. Aren't you outraged? You should be outraged, because if that behavior really makes you makes you feel that way, then what you need to do is you need to check all the white people that culturally behave that way. Because the reason why she's behaving that way, for one, is because her white boss told her to, and for two, because of the French influence in her country. Why don't you take some responsibility? That'd be asking too much.
There was going to be an extensive top-to-bottom review of the phone, how that went.
Can you start again because someone was yelling over you?
Jay Sullivan said last year.
Could you start again because someone was yelling from Africa?
Some African was trying to talk.
And she didn't say someone was yelling from Africa. She said somebody was yelling over you. So that's Jimmy Dore just adding his own anti-black bullshit. And he knows that most white people tune out as soon as black people open their mouths. They're not capable of paying attention to anything that we say because of that built-in arrogance where they don't acknowledge anything that we do other than animal grunting. So most of the audience is tuned out anyway as soon as they see a black face. You know what I'm saying? So listen to her very closely. She doesn't say that.
She's fucking ignoring them and she's sick of them. And why don't you shut the fuck up? While
Russia.
And blame Russia.
Yeah.
Hang on. I think there's more to this.
Last year that there was going to be an extensive top-to-bottom review of the phone, how that went.
Can you start again because someone was yelling over you?
So see, she said, can you start again? Someone was yelling over you. Jimmy Dore added in somebody from Africa was yelling over you. So that's just Jimmy Dore being white. That's what being white looks like. You know what I'm saying?
Jay Sullivan said last year.
Could you start again because someone was yelling from Africa?
Some African was trying to talk over you.
Wow.
Blinken
So
said,
see, they just now. Do you see what I'm saying about how they do that? Now, Jimmy Dore said something that now, and don't get it twisted. I'm not taking up for Jean Pierre, but Jimmy Dore said something that Jean Pierre didn't say, and then they just wind up in their back and go around and start repeating the same shit. Oh my God! Oh my God! Did you hear what she said? She said Africans are yelling. Yeah, that's not what she said. Just like half the time, nothing is what these people say that they said. So.
Said that the United States and African nations can't achieve any of our shared goals if we don't work together as equal partners. Apparently not in the press room, though. Not in the White House press room. So I think this is actually good that they appointed her.
Carla Lockhart said, how is Jimmy Dore funny? You mean to tell me you haven't laughed anytime you've seen his face?
As the press secretary, because
because his heartbeat is the entire comedy act.
People forget is that the press secretary's job is to be a professional liar, and everybody pretended like that.
Yeah, that's true. She said someone is yelling and he couldn't hear. Dore is more fake than his hair dye. That's hilarious and true.
Got invented during the Trump administration, that the press secretary and the politicians lied. That's what they do. If they're talking, they're lying. And she's a liar, just like Jen Psaki was a liar, just like Joe Biden's a liar. They're all liars.
They think so little of the African reporters. They're like, I'm not even going to bother lying to you.
Yeah.
I'm lying to them because they're more polite.
I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but that's how, she's acting like a white person acts. It's hilarious to see white people act so outraged towards somebody treating black people like they're dumb when that is literally a cultural practice of white people. That is something that goes hand in hand with white and European. So it's just this is just fascinating to watch.
Well, you're a reporter. You're a real journalist, unlike us here. Tell us, Max, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I don't know about me being how me being a real journalist would relate to this, because I'd never be allowed in that room by the Biden White House, which considers one of the greatest journalists in the world to be a real criminal, or in Biden's words, a digital terrorist, and that's Julian Assange. I remember one of the biggest stooges in the international media, one of the biggest tools, Jorge Ramos, voice of the Latin American right wing from the corporate-owned Univision, stood up in a Trump press conference and demanded to question Trump out of turn. Instead of just waiting in line, he wasn't even, as far as I know, registered, and he was removed.
And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys can, if you haven't smashed that like button, please make sure that you guys smash that like button. We got 14 people watching. Shout out and thank you to all 14 people that are watching. If you guys can smash that like button, we will have 26 likes. And shout out to the 3 people watching on Twitch. If you guys could share the video out, that'd be great.
And that became this gigantic blow up in the Beltway press, and it was portrayed as racist and xenophobic by Trump. And not,
I don't understand the whole white people racist thing towards Latinos. If you're a white Latino, I don't understand how that works. I don't understand that. If you're a Caucasian Latino, European Latino, I don't understand how that's racism. Does that make any sense? Last time I checked, I thought racism had to be across racial lines. Latinos aren't a race. Neither is Hispanic. Most of them aren't brown either. So I don't understand any of that. And I don't know why they call black people people of color when white people are the ones that change color. Like I don't understand any of that.
Call on Jorge Ramos. But here you have this clip that went viral thanks to Calsacha News. You can see its logo in the upper right-hand corner. That is actually a news agency affiliated with Evo Morales and the Cocoa Growers Association in Bolivia. So that tells you how much, and it's a really important site, but that tells you how much attention this exchange got in the United States. The Beltway press was completely comfortable with this condescending display, which was a perfectly distilled the White House's attitude to Africa. They're really putting they're really putting their condescension on display. And I guarantee you that all across Africa, this was watched, particularly in places like the Horn of Africa, where the U.S. is trying to impose its will. An interesting little.
So, see, did you guys hear what he said about the Horn of Africa, where U.S. is trying to impose its will? Now, here's my question. How much content online have you guys come across, particularly on YouTube, or for the people that's watching on Twitch, that's talking about anything going on in the Horn of Africa? Has anybody heard about that? Anything going on with the United States in the Horn of Africa? Now, see, my thing is, with all of this terrorist and all of this military movement going on in Africa, you would think that you would hear more about it. That's why I keep asking the question, why don't we hear about this stuff? As you guys can tell, just from this short segment, this short hour and a half live stream, it's going down in Africa. especially in North Africa. But we're not hearing about it. So my question is, what's the reason, guys, that you all think that we're not hearing about it? I think that we should. If you guys think that we should be hearing more about this kind of stuff, give me a thumbs up in the comment section. Let me know.
Well, I don't know if it's an interesting factoid, which is that Ilhan Omar barely won re-election. She's known as a
See, remember, and as we were talking about earlier, I had mentioned Ilhan Omar, and see, now they're bringing her up again. It's one of the reasons why it's so important to pay very close attention, because see, pay very close attention to how Jimmy Dore made it a point to point out that Jean-Pierre is an immigrant, but when they want to make sure that that there's an anti-black slant on something, they leave out the immigrant part. We're just going to call her Ilhan Omar because everybody knows her as the black lady with the scarf. So we're just going to call her that just because we can just call her that. Now, what do you guys think about that? They play funny games. And that's why it's important for people to be aware of those games. Well, we definitely will be checking that stuff out. We're definitely going to be giving more attention to that kind of stuff. I'm going to be on these satellite channels, the International Newscast and Auditing Africa and Oil and Gold Railroad and Tales from the Cryptocurrency. I'm definitely going to be trying to get some more content out on these smaller channels because I've been neglecting them. But there's stuff that's coming up that's specific to these channels that I need to put up. So make sure that you guys are subscribed if you're interested in this kind of content.
That Ilhan Omar barely won re-election. She's known as a progressive. I, considered her of the squad one of the better ones on foreign policy. She'd taken some decent stands against sanctions, but on the Horn of Africa, especially in Somalia, she's been pushing the agenda actually of her family clan, which has upset a lot of people in her district.
Well, they booed her, right?
They booed her for 10 minutes straight. And
now here's the question: who is her family clan? See, the plot thickens. Who is the family clan of Ilhan Omar? Does anybody know? See, that's run me that family right there. We might have to run Ilhan Omar's family. Who is the clan? Is that clan associated with Al-Shabaab? And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, shouts out, drop some radiation emojis for you guys. You guys got yourselves up to that 1-to-1 ratio. We got 14 live viewers and we got 14 likes. That is what's up. Make sure if you guys haven't smashed that like button that you do.
in her own district.
For a number of reasons, including that they think she's trying to get famous in Washington.
Shout out to my man, Perfect Pure. What up with it, bro?
Devoted to woke politics, which are kind of just considered weird, and more importantly, that crime is rising, inequality is rising.
Shout out to
she's just
AJ.
not
What up,
there.
bro?
And a lesser-known centrist ran against her who lives in the district, said he'll stay in the district, and he came pretty close to defeating her. But the point I wanted to make here about Africa is that Ilhan Omar actually has achieved some influence in the Democratic-controlled Congress on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. She's the vice chair of the subcommittee that deals with Africa, next to Karen Bass, who's going to probably be the next mayor of LA. And she has used that position to kneecap the former Somali president, who is actually pretty popular. He was defeated by a member of Ilhan Omar's clan, and Ilhan Omar's first husband. I just saw on his Facebook page, he announced that he is going to be a lead advisor to the new president of Somalia. So this is really like meddlesome behavior that is of a part with the imperial attitude the United States has to the whole of Africa. And
There you go. There you go, right there. If you knew about that, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't know about that, give me a thumbs down. Now, this guy right here, I don't know if you guys know who this guy, the redhead guy here with the brown shirt on that's on the Zoom window. I forget what the name of his YouTube channel is. He actually has a YouTube channel. He's actually a very thorough journalist. I've checked out some of his stuff where he's talking about Palestinian people and issues going on in that part of the world, and he, you know, he covers that stuff pretty good. So I'm not shocked to see such a detailed accounting by him because he's pretty detail intense. What do you guys think about that? That's the squad. That's a Justice Democrat, Ilhan Omar. In my opinion, I find it kind of troubling that there's not a lot of content on YouTube to review this kind of information. So I'm going to be trying to do some research into this kind of stuff and put more information up like this, especially on this channel, because in my opinion, we need to pay very close attention to foreign policy. Shout out to my man, RG Titan. What up with it, bro? The gray zone, that's it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Shout out to my man, Crypto Key. What up with it, bro? Yeah, the gray zone, that's it.
More importantly, that crime is rising, inequality is rising, and she's just not there. And a lesser-known centrist ran against her who lives in the district, said he'll stay in the district, and he came pretty close to defeating her. But the point I wanted to make here about Africa is that Ilhan Omar actually has achieved some influence in the Democratic-controlled Congress on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. She's the vice chair of the subcommittee that deals with Africa, next to Karen Bass, who's going to probably be the next mayor of LA. And she has used that position to kneecap the former Somali president, who was actually pretty popular. He was defeated by a member of Ilhan Omar's clan, and Ilhan Omar's first husband. I just saw on his Facebook page, he announced that he is going to be a lead advisor to the new president of Somalia. So this is really like meddlesome behavior that is of a part with the imperial attitude the United States has to the whole of Africa. And it's coming from someone who is marketed to us as one of the biggest progressives.
Yeah, we're finding out that when push comes to shove, the squad are not progressives, that they're actually willing members of the establishment. And
go
ahead.
A friend of mine made the comparison to me today that they're kind of like boy bands, like boy band members, how they just kind of bring you into culture and sell you on a phony image and just leave you with this hollow, empty veneer. But they, you know, at the end of the day, you've spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on concerts and bought a bunch of merchandise, and they're completely vapid, empty salespeople.
But look at all the wins they've racked up with using their leverage.
Well,
he pushed Biden left so hard he fell off his bike.
Look at all the wins Nina Turner's racking up. She can't even. I don't know. Could she even get elected dog catcher?
She couldn't even make an anti-black accusation on a YouTuber stick. So I think she went to the Anna Kasparian school of launching false accusations in a desperate attempt that everybody sees through. But she nailed it. Everybody saw through it. Hey, we're coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma City.
So there's that. So now my question, which is the same question that I always ask, is what do you guys think about that? Some interesting information. And we're going to expand on that information in the next video. So if you guys are not subscribed to International Legion Newscast or quote unquote newscast, go to the channel section of the page real quick and make sure that you guys hit the bell icon twice on that channel. And then we're going to go deeper into this whole Afghanistan thing, because what we just talked about in this stream bleeds over into that. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I definitely appreciate everybody being here. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice, smash that like button, share the video out to all of your followers. If you know people that are interested in this kind of content, make sure you guys spread the word. and I will catch you all on the next video. All right, peace.